Hey, what's up guys, this is Rajesh and you're watching Input Output Campus. So today in this video we'll discuss about another very important hook, which is useEffect hook. So useEffect hook is the second mostly used hook in React functional component. So in the previous video we have learned how to use useState hook in React.js. So we'll use all the codes from the previous video and we'll use that useState hook with this useEffect hook. Okay, so first of all, let's understand what is useEffect hook and how to use useEffect hook and when to use useEffect hook. Okay, so this is the very first thing you have to know. The useEffect hook provided by this React, and this useEffect hook allows you to perform side effects in your component. So this is your component, this is your app component, and the useEffect hook allows you to perform side effect. So now what is side effect? If you want to fetch some data from some API, then you can use the useEffect hook to fetch the data from the API. So this is called the side effect. Okay, so fetching data is one of the side effect in React functional component. So you can perform this side effect, and another is like if you want to directly update the DOM and the timers, you can take the help of useEffect. So how the useEffect look like? The useEffect look like similar to this useState. So we have to first import the useEffect from this React, like use and then e capital. So we have to write this in camel case, and use keyword is compulsory. Okay, so this is the useEffect hook we have imported from the React. So React provide this hook. Now how we can write the useEffect hook? So here let's comment it useEffect. Okay, so useEffect hook takes two argument or accept two argument. So the first one is what? First one is function, and the second argument is dependency. Okay, so useEffect hook takes two arguments. First one is function and second one is a dependency, and we will not write like this. And this second argument dependency is optional, but you have to give a function here. Okay, so this is the useEffect hook and how to use it and when to use it. Okay, so let's see how to use the useEffect hook, then we'll see when to use this useEffect hook. Okay, so first of all, write here a fat arrow function first. So fat arrow function, and inside this, so this is a function. Okay, so useEffect hook takes two argument. First one is a function and second one is argument. So first we have give here a function, and inside this function we'll log something. Suppose I want to log useEffect. Okay, so let's give a console log here, and here give rendering. So when our app render, this line will be executed and we can see when the app is rendering. Okay, so when the app render for the first time, so this useEffect will also be rendered. So let's see. So let's clear the console and refresh it, and you can see first the app is rendering, then the useEffect is rendering, but here it's showing two times. So let's stop this. I go to this index.js and then remove this or comment this strict mode. Okay, and save it. Now if you go to the console, you can see first your app is rendering, then the useEffect is rendering. Okay, now when to use useEffect hook? So we can use it in the initial render when the app is rendering. Then after rendering this app, this useEffect will render, and if we write some logic here, this logic will be executed. Okay, this is the first case. And second case, when use it when the component goes out of the scope, and we can also call or handle any piece of code for a particular state change. Suppose this is count. So when this count value is changing, then we can console this or execute this line of code. Otherwise this line of code will not be executed. Okay, so this is the another case when we can use this useEffect hook. So here you can see we have write only one useEffect. So let's write three useEffect here. Like this is the first useEffect, and then there will be second use effect, and this is the third use effect. Okay, let's give it use effect 1, this is use effect 2, and this is use effect 3. Okay, and let's save it. And if you go to the browser, you can see for the first render of your app, the app first rendering, then use effect 1 is render, then use effect 2 is render, and then use effect 3 is rendered. Here you can see we have not give any dependencies. So if you don't give any dependencies, then for every render of your app, the use effect will be rendered. So if I click on this increment, then you can see this app is rendering, this 3 use effect is rendering. So when I again click on this, again this 3 use effect is rendering. So this is the first case. So case 1, this runs on every render. Okay, now we'll see the case 2. So what is case 2? So for the case 2, we'll give some dependencies here. We'll give empty dependencies. So this is called empty dependency array. Okay, so let's give the empty dependency here also. So when we give this empty dependency, then for the first render, only for the first render, this use effect will be called. So for the first render, these 3 use effect will be called, but for the second, third, fourth, and multiple renders, only this first use effect will be called. This use effect 2 and use effect 3 will not be called because we have give an empty dependencies, and by using these empty dependencies, this use effect will call only for the first render. Okay, so if you save this and if you go to the browser and clear the console and to refresh it, you can see for the first render the function is rendering, then use effect 1 is rendering, use effect 2 is rendering, and use effect 3 is rendering. Now if we render the apps again by clicking on this increment, you will see that only use effect 1 will render. Okay, let's click on this. You can see our function is rendering and use effect 1 is rendering, but use effect 2 and 3 are not rendering. Why? Because we have kept the empty dependencies here. Okay, so this is the case 2. So you can see here for the multiple render, use effect 2 and 3 will not be rendered. Only use effect 1 will be rendered with this function rendering. Okay, so this is the case 2. So what is the case 2? So this use effect 2 will runs or render only first render. Okay, so this is case 2. And the last case, or the case 3, so case 3 is when we give some dependencies here. Suppose we want to give some dependencies here. Like what dependency? Dependencies may be props or state. So here you can give some props or states. Okay, so I will give here a state when the state will change. When the state, suppose you can see here, this is the increment count and decrement count. So when this state, this count state will change, only then this use effect 3 will be called. Okay, so let's give a dependency here, count, and save it. And if we go to the browser and clear the console and refresh the app, you can see for the first render all the use effect are called with this function rendering. And if we update the value of this count by clicking on this increment or decrement, you will see that the use effect 3 will render with this function rendering and use effect rendering. Okay, so let's click on this increment and you can see function is rendering, use effect 1 is rendering, and then use effect 3 is rendering. So when I will click on this, every time on updating of this state value, the use effect 3 will be called because we have give here a dependency count. Okay, so for the case 3, it's render for the first time, runs on first render plus runs on dependency change. Okay, when this dependency will change or update, so on change or update of this dependency, this use effect will be called. So this use effect is very important for React.js, because in the upcoming videos and project we'll see the use of this use effect, and this is one of the most useful hooks. Okay friends, hope you understand how use effect is working in React. So still have you any confusions about this use effect hook, then please comment below, and thank you for watching this video. See you in the next video. Till then, take care.